Welcome to a football show, Victory Monday. That's 4 consecutive Victory Mondays here on a football show. This is Zach. I am Braden. Yes, Homer gear on the show today for the first and only time of my entire career, because for the first time in my entire professional adult career, the Tennessee Volunteers have beaten the Alabama Crimson Tide. It's the first time that's ever happened since I believe I graduated from college and started working. So welcome to the pharmacy here on McFerrin Avenue. Here we go. Victory beers, of course, for everybody here.
All right.
We got the Pilsner and we got the Porter. I'll take the Porter. Give me the Porter. That's right. Smoke him if you got him. Of course. Welcome to the show. Pharmacy, Weiss Liquors, Build KG, Kingston Group. We're going to tell you about all of our great sponsors. We got a big show planned. No Tennessee Titans game this weekend, but some AFC.
Last weekend.
Sorry.
There is one this weekend.
Last weekend. Yes, I should have said that. Last weekend. So Victory Monday for the Tennessee Volunteers. Also, Ole Miss and Kentucky and LSU. A lot of teams with big victories this weekend. So we're going to talk a lot of SEC ball today on the show. There's going to be a press conference coming up at 2:00 Central Time from the mayor about the new Titan Stadium. We're going to have a lot of information for you on Thursday's show.
Hopefully.
About the Titans situation and what's going on there. So we will get to that on Thursday. But bye-week fixes, we'll get to that as well. So a lot of stuff to do on the show today, Zach. Good to see you, my man, here at again, I love this weather. A gorgeous day at the pharmacy. Beer garden and burger parlor.
It filled up in the last 15 minutes because there was just one table out here. Then now there's more, and that's pretty amazing. And we have a local heckler. Joe is here.
I think it's capital H at this point. It's the heckler.
Heckler.
It's a proper noun. It is the heckler. Joe here, of course. We appreciate that always. And, of course, a big Tennessee Volunteers fan. So lots of reasons to celebrate on the show. Let me remind you, of course, about our wonderful and amazing sponsors. But also, before we do that, special thanks to Corey Curtis for hanging out with us of News 2 on Thursday, hanging out with you, I should say. Did a great job. Go check out that show. Lots of interesting stuff about the Titans and the SEC. We've got Weiss Liquors, locally owned and operated for almost 100 years. Uber Eats, search Weiss Liquors.
They drive so you can drink.
There you go.
Sorry, catching up on a little bit of NFL news.
You got business. Oh, there's NFL news?
Well, the Robbie Anderson trade, the Bills are releasing players. Doesn't really, I don't think anything that really matters.
As long as the Titans aren't trading for Robbie Anderson, I'm fine with that because I don't.
No, he's already gone for a 6th-round pick in 2024 and a 7th-round pick in 2025.
And I assume that's from the same person who told everybody about Mike Vrabel's emails. So we'll get to that a little bit later on as well. Some tidbits from Mike Vrabel's press conference on Monday to enjoy. So Weiss Liquors, Kingston Group, if you're going to make any big decisions about your house, make sure you do it with the Kingston Group in mind. Just talk to them, have a conversation. Maybe if there's only like a minute to go in the game and the other team has some timeouts and you're trying to kick a field goal to win it and you need some advice on what to do in that situation, just have a conversation with your clock management team. This is like the Kingston Group. Just have a conversation with the Kingston Group. Get their advice before you make any big decisions about your house. So, locally owned and operated, Kingston Group, Weiss Liquors, and the pharmacy. Get into the comment section as well. Turn on all the notifications, right, Zach? And,
everybody's been checking on my well-being, acting like I wasn't mentally prepared for Alabama to lose.
Well, I don't think many Alabama fans, I guess we're into it now.
Yeah.
Welcome to the show, talking Tennessee and Alabama. I personally, I don't think Alabama fans have a lot of like leash. Bleeding hearts don't go out to Alabama fans when you have this many championships and this much success and the greatest coach of all time and you won 15 straight against Tennessee and blah, 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 blah. All that stuff is true. So I don't think the objective casual observer can look at Alabama fans and be like, oh, so sad, Alabama. Like, no, you have to appreciate the other side of it.
Well, and let me say this, the Alabama fans that are complaining about this win are complete and utter nut jobs and losers. They're Alabama fan losers that are acting just as bad and just as piss poor as UT fans do when they lose. And it's ridiculous. Look, we can get into it as much as you want and where you want to go, but in all honesty, in the end, UT, University of Tennessee, earned that victory. They deserved that victory over Alabama.
So,
I'm an Alabama fan, lifelong.
I agree with that. Lifelong diehard over here.
Yeah. 34 years I've been rooting for Alabama.
Here, before we dissect the game itself, I just want to make sure everything is perfectly clear about how I feel about this because there seems to be some confusion on Twitter about this. This is everything that makes college football great. Mm-hmm. This exact game is everything that makes the sport of college football my favorite since I was a child. This is Goliath, the giant, the monster with the greatest coach of all time who has never been beaten by Tennessee, who is 2 decades of frustration built into 100,000 people storming the field with 2 elite quarterbacks playing near perfect football against each other at the highest possible levels, undefeated teams. You got the atmosphere was great. Every play, every drive was drama. You had big plays. You had drop passes. You had field goals. You had missed field goals. You had made field goals.
Missed calls.
It was there's the Bama fan coming out.
Well, I'm just saying. Let's just be honest. It's just factually correct, but that's not why they lost.
No, but stepping away from the Alabama Tennessee-ness of it all and just saying, why do you love sports? Why do you love college
football? Have the ratings
came
came in yet for this?
We have. It'll come out in a couple of days, and we'll I assume the number will be huge locally here in Nashville. But that game was just, it embodied everything that is to love about college football. Who cares about the rankings, the AP, and the college football playoff committee? Who cares if it means they can beat Georgia, Alabama makes the playoff? Like, none of that matters right now. All that matters was celebrating for those 4 hours, how beautiful a game that was, and all the photos I got from all of my friends smoking cigars.
Yeah. It was the chaos at the end of it, what you saw Peyton Manning in the locker room taking pictures with Jalen Hyatt, and they're all smoking, cigars. Coach Josh is out there trying to give interviews or whatever out on the field, and he's being handed a box of cigars. I mean, where did all these cigars come from, by the way?
Jay Cutler, actually.
Yeah?
No, it's not a joke.
Yeah?
Jay Cutler supposedly provided all of the cigars.
That is awesome. That makes the victory even better,
it's
to be
almost
honest.
as good as Lane Kiffin right before the field. Did you see that tweet right before the
Yeah.
field goal? Lane Kiffin's like, now go ahead and can you make this one for us? Like, because obviously he was the coach in 2009 when Mount Cody blocked it and caused them to lose the game. Again, we can go back into, and I know you want to talk about the missed call on Bryce Young, the targeting penalty that probably should have been a targeting penalty. There was the pass interference in the end zone that Tennessee fans hate.
But none of those technically, to me, changed. They're bad, and they need to be addressed, especially targeting calls. They need to be addressed, kind of like Mike Vrabel reply all email. But in the end, those had no bearing on the game in my mind.
No, I agree. I do think we can discuss the targeting, but I don't want to take anything away from Tennessee winning that game. It wasn't Alabama giving it away or making a mistake or doing this or that. It wasn't the officials. This wasn't Tennessee making some mistake. And obviously their big mistake was going full Clint Sterner and putting the football literally on the ground to lose the game. So if you want to be feels like 98, that's the moment where I looked at my wife and I said, I can't believe the reverse Clint Sterner just happened. And they just put her on the ground for Alabama to win. And I thought the whole time Bryce Young's leading him down the field. I looked over at my wife. I said, this is the 4-minute offense right here. And she goes, what does that mean? She's like, what? She's a football fan. She's like, what does that mean? I go, this is where they're going to bleed the clock, and they're going to kick the field goal with about 18 seconds to go.
Force them to use timeouts.
Force them, in a perfect world.
Yeah.
Force them to use timeouts. And Bryce Young's going to do the thing that Bryce Young has done his entire career. And sure enough, they got there. They didn't do it exactly right, but they missed the field goal. And then Hendon Hooker and Brew McCoy and just – play after play after play on both sides. You cannot take anything away from either side. It was awesome.
Well,
awesome.
And when we talked about it all week, I mean, it's all over the radio, everywhere you heard that basically said, even if UT were to lose a close game to Alabama, that still says a lot about the team.
Yeah.
That still says a lot about how great they are. They forced Alabama into a close game. It wasn't an Alabama caused it. They forced Alabama. They got to play their style football. Coach Josh got to impose his will on the Nick Saban defense and play offense exactly how he wants to play.
Yep.
And they ended up winning that game. They earned. That to me, if you're watching on YouTube, I specifically on Twitter, everywhere I put talking about this game, I said earned and deserved.
Yeah.
Because they earned it. And they deserved it. And I'm not above being able to objectively step back, overlook, and say they earned and deserved that win.
And I think you said it right. To quote Sinatra, they did it their way. They did it. Josh Heupel did it the way he wanted to do it. And what he does is he forces you to pick run or pass. The offensive line for Tennessee was brilliant at protecting the quarterback, way better than I ever expected.
Well, they've been brilliant all year. I don't know if you've seen the stats that No Flags Film put out, but against all these top SEC pass rushers that are going to be in the first and second round, top pass rushers, they've only allowed a couple of pressures.
LSU, Florida, all these guys. Pittsburgh.
Will Anderson. I mean, I don't even remember Will Anderson playing that game.
I'm not sure he does either from his comments. No, I think that is the number. Again, there's going to be so much time to argue about what does it mean, and we'll talk about what it means for Tennessee long term. It's clearly proof of concept for Josh Heupel, which is a big deal. And people like me who doubted the upside of the hire, which I'm fine being accounted for. Never been happier to be wrong in my entire life.
You were called out on the official freezing cold takes, old takes exposed. It was great because someone else sent it to me. I didn't see it, but someone in a group chat sent it. Didn't tag me in it, but they just sent it, just talk about it. And you had him as the number 3 hire in like a couple of years, 5 years.
And this is the one thing I can't stand about like the internet and social media among them, I guess, dozens of
is
other
that they
things.
remember everything?
Well, no, it's that I'm not going to change my opinion 4 years ago. I changed my opinion now that I have new information. New shit has come to light, man. And so, of course, I changed my opinion. That's called human beings living life. My opinion then doesn't change. My opinion then was what it was. I was
Did you
wrong.
get any mentions off that? Or like anybody?
I don't follow him.
Okay.
I stopped following him a long time ago. But here's the deal.
I just say, UT fans tend to like go
Sure.
find old tweets.
Oh, no, I'm getting hammered today because I think that you shouldn't use old AP rankings as a metric to define college football teams. Like, I didn't want to do this. But Ohio State beat number 5 Notre Dame. Does anyone think that Notre Dame is the 5th best team in America and that Ohio State deserves credit for beating the 5th best team in America? No, they don't. So you're not this Tennessee has wins over good teams. But don't tell me that Florida is the number 17th best team in America or that Pittsburgh is the number 18th best team in America. Like LSU could be much better by the end of the season, and that win's going to look better and better because it was on the road and they dominated. But when you're looking at Tennessee's resume, don't tell me you beat 4 ranked teams. Because there's only one of them that's ranked right now. And so I don't like this is not a Tennessee complaint. It's a college football media rankings complaint where if you think Notre Dame is the 5th best team in America, then you can say that Ohio State beat the 5th best team in America. They happen to be ranked 5th at the time. And now 6 weeks later, they're awful.
Right.
So you didn't beat a good Notre Dame team. You beat an awful Notre Dame team. This was not meant to be a Tennessee commentary. It just turned into that because Tennessee fans are puffed up right now, which is fine. They should be.
Have they returned the goalpost?
It's at the bottom of the Tennessee River right now. From what Josh Heupel said on
fucking animals. What were they like? I get that you can be excited, and it's a hilarious visual to have read that they had ended up taking this out of the stadium
down Kingston Pike.
But nobody thought, hey, they may need this goalpost to play a fucking game.
Okay,
coming
all right.
up.
This brings up this is another sensitive subject for me. There's a lot of sensitive subjects for me right now, which is bad on a Victory Monday. I get it. Danny White, come in for a chat, buddy.
Oh, if I had a Zoom thing, I could zoom you in.
Your athletic department makes $150 million a year. Don't ask me to pay for your fucking goalposts, okay? The fans are going to donate so much money to your organization because of that win over Alabama. You're going to raise so much money off of that win over Alabama and the win over Florida and the win over LSU. Don't ask the season ticket holders and the people who paid hundreds of dollars to get into that game and sit in the 300 level double Z's. Don't ask them to pay for your goalposts. You can pony up 50, 100 grand to buy some damn goalposts.
All right, so
I can't believe they're begging the fans to pay for that.
It's kind of ridiculous. I agree, and
unbelievable.
Maybe it's because there's a goalpost shortage, and they're afraid they can't get one shipped in.
Supply chain problem.
Yeah, there's supply chain problem. It's really hard to get air conditioning parts, so maybe it's really hard to get goalposts.
Josh Heupel today was on SEC this morning with Peter and Chris, and he said, "Listen, we'll have some goalposts in the stadium when it's time to play against UT Martin." So I think they're going to be fine.
Joe had brought up a point about the UT schedule so far, and props to Danny White, right, for setting up this pretty perfect schedule for them.
It works out well, and I think it also worked out well against Alabama because I think if Bama loses to A&M, maybe they don't lose this particular game. We know how Saban is after a loss.
But don't you think that was an ugly enough win that could almost count as a loss in Nick Saban's mind?
I think in the I think yes. Quickly to answer your question.
Yeah.
But you don't have Bryce Young. So I think for the committee people and for the resume evaluators and for
for Saban,
but again, even then he goes, we got away with one, man. We played sloppy and Jalen Milroe was our quarterback. And clearly Bryce Young listen, Hendon Hooker played one of the best football games I have ever seen a Tennessee player play at any position ever.
Well, hell, I could have made the throws that he was making because Jalen Hyatt was wide open. It's like 5 Caleb Farleys out there.
Catching strays. But Bryce Young was better. Bryce Young was better than Hendon Hooker on Saturday night.
But Bryce Young,
they're both elite.
They're elite college quarterbacks, and Bryce Young was better. Bryce Young was doing things that NFL scouts are going to drool themselves over, like he always does. I mean, he's checking into plays that would have worked if there wasn't a penalty. There was one play early in the game. He checked into it, and I believe it was a penalty called on Alabama. And Alabama again, super sloppy first half. I mean, you're talking about the most penalties in the Saban era in the first half. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, well, they're lucky to be going in the half at 20-10.
And they then, because we talk about the middle eight all the time in football, right? The last four of the first half, the first four of the second half. If you expand that a little bit, Alabama went 38-14 on Tennessee.
Yeah.
No, most teams do not come back from that punch from Alabama. And Tennessee came back. Then they punched themselves in the nuts by putting the football down and still came back from their own gut punch. And to me, that's where they earned it and they deserve the credit, was sort of the intestinal fortitude. I think the crowd helped them out. I think the location and the vibe and the energy all helped them out. And Hendon Hooker was spectacular. I don't want to get confused here. He was spectacular. Jalen Hyatt, spectacular. Offensive line, great. The pressure on Bryce Young, even though it never got home, it felt like, was really good and affected the game. This was two great teams playing a great football game, and I just don't want to get – I think you're right, the call where Bryce Young gets hit in the face mask, literally in the face mask, and they don't call it targeting. Okay, that's a viable complaint. Should Nick Saban have run the ball in that final possession to use up some timeouts? Viable complaint. Should Jahmyr Gibbs have caught the pass and picked up enough yards to make an easy game-winning field goal? Probably could have happened on another – if they run the play 10 times, does it happen 9 of them? I just – all this stuff is real, but I feel like it almost takes away from just the pure awesomeness of the game, and just sometimes we just need to step back and say, tip your cap to Tennessee, tip your cap to Alabama, and say, what a freaking game. We all deserve to watch one of those every now and then.
It's like watching the Bills and Chiefs game yesterday, where if it wasn't for Josh Allen making a miraculous leap, I'm just talking about the leap over a defender. You're talking about a different ball game. It took Tennessee did enough to win, but they did it in a way that's not like, oh God, they're barely doing it. I thought, even though it was a close game, it was a convincing win by UT, in the sense that, like I said earlier, they got to play their ball, their style of football, and to me, that's more important than just eking out a win playing a style that's not your own.
I get,
you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I guess the quick way to say that is, like, there's nothing fluky about the win for Tennessee.
Right.
Nothing fluky at all about it.
And listen, Alabama did enough to lose too, right? It's not just UT won. Alabama did enough to lose as well. They like you said, they could have easily had UT burn out their timeouts by running the ball, which was the smart move to do, but they didn't. But you know what? UT still had to stop them on those pass plays, right? They still had to
throw two chunk plays to get into field goal range.
Right. They still had to go and do stuff on their offensive drive to get to the scoring win. So to me, it's like, yeah, Alabama could have done that, but still UT did enough and did what they could and won the game.
Yep.
Right? Like,
yeah, no question.
It's just one of those. It's one of those rare games where both teams, one team won, one team lost, but both teams could have won that game on a flip of a coin.
And that's kind of my ultimate point here, is that if Alabama makes the long field goal and wins the game, I don't think any less of Tennessee. I think Tennessee, what an accomplishment. Like, you played a great game against one of the best teams of our, in the country. You went toe-to-toe and were dead even with them. And I think this is where football is unique, in that, because football, you get into the playoff and it's one or done, and some craziness can happen in the NFL and in college. Crazy things can happen and you can lose in a one or done situation. But in the regular season, I look at teams and I try to evaluate them based holistically on their entire picture. And when I watch that game, you have two elite quarterbacks in a hostile environment playing basically an even football game for 60 minutes. There's very little separating those two teams. Right. So if anything, they should be ranked right next to each other. And if you want to go Tennessee 3 and Bama 4, or Tennessee 1 or Bama 2, or I don't even care if you put Bama at 3 and Tennessee at 4. I don't care, because it doesn't matter until the end of the season. The point is that when I watched that game, I saw two fairly even teams. Statistically, Tennessee is much worse defensively over the body of work, which is what the committee is going to look at. But they have time to make that better, and they clearly were better on Saturday. So this is like Steph Curry and Ja Morant just knocking down long threes with a hand in their face. Like, it's just guys making shots. That's
so
what this
who
was on
is
Saturday.
college football player committee or college football playoff committee better? Like, who has the better resume so far? Who is the better overall team?
Tennessee has the better resume. They have the head-to-head win, and therefore I think the committee would rank them higher today.
Which they obviously did, but technically what you see today, when you got the gun pointed at you to make the college football playoffs, you're going to be hard-pressed to find Alabama not make that college football playoffs.
No,
right?
My issue with Tennessee is the balance. And you have to evaluate a team over the course of 12 or 13 games when you decide the playoff rankings. You don't decide it based off one head-to-head. Now, if all things are equal, they're both 11-1, let's say, at the end of the season, and the committee going with head-to-head as the tiebreaker, I think that's exactly right. But that's not how the committee works. They've said all along that head-to-head is the tiebreaker, not the deciding factor. Because, again, look at the NFL and look at college football. Teams lose all the time to teams ranked below them.
Yeah, like Jacksonville losing or beating Buffalo last year.
Right, exactly. That's the game of football. It's fluky, it's weird, it's fun. That's what makes it great. But if you ask me right now to put every cent I own on a neutral field between Alabama and Tennessee, who are you betting on? And I probably would bet on Alabama. So does that mean I think Alabama's the quote-unquote better team? If that's how you want to take it, that's fine. But that's sort of the committee's job, is to say who's the better team, which is very intentionally vague.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see where the college football playoff committee would definitely say neutral field, it's going to be Alabama's the better team. Because obviously UT, and I don't say this
Tennessee fans are
derogatory.
screaming at us
right,
now.
I don't say this derogatory. UT barely won, right? That's not a derogatory thing to say. I'm just stating the fact that they barely won the game. But they also had major home field advantage. That field level camera was shaking the whole second half. Like the all 22 camera was shaking the whole second half. How well do they get to travel versus Alabama fans traveling, who probably have already bought their SEC game tickets, who already probably have their college football playoff tickets and stuff like that?
Right.
You know, all these accommodations, that's a factor and everything. And I understand that UT's defense is really not that great. And I agree. But their offense is so much better than, let's say, a top tier college football defense in Alabama.
It's better than almost every offense in America.
Yeah.
And it's better than most defenses in a home field regular season game.
Yeah.
Which is what that was. Giving up almost 7 yards to play, 600 yards of offense to Florida is not good.
Let me ask you this. How much do you, though, look at LSU? They're on the road in a hostile environment, and the LSU's a good defense, and here comes this offense.
Here's what if I'm a Tennessee fan, here's how I'm spinning my defense. Because it was not good the first month of the season. It's given up a lot of yards. From a metric standpoint, it's not close to Georgia, Michigan, Clemson, Ohio State, Alabama from a statistical standpoint. That's where I think the committee will look at them and go, but they don't look as complete, even though their resume is much better. They've got a lot more. They got better wins on the schedule. By the way, Alabama has some good wins too. At Arkansas without your starting quarterback, A&M without your starting quarterback. They've, Texas on the road. Texas is a good team. So Alabama's
not pretty wins though. None of those are pretty wins.
No, but
except for Arkansas, I guess.
But on the road against Pittsburgh is a good win for Tennessee, but it hasn't aged as well, and that went to overtime. The Florida win was a good win. It hasn't aged as well. The win over LSU, I think, is going to age quite nicely. I think LSU is going to get better, and that win's going to look really good at the end of the year. So all of it's going to be judged at the end. The key is, if I'm selling it to Tennessee fans, is what we saw against LSU, pressuring Jaden Daniels and creating havoc and just pure domination, mixed with how much work Bryce Young had to do to throw the football. Like the amount of times he was scrambling and then had to do something just crazy to set up himself.
It feels like he was only going to be able to do stuff that Bryce Young could do.
Yeah, he is one of one.
Yeah.
He is a one-of-one player, and 99% of college quarterbacks that play Tennessee in that situation were eaten alive by that defensive line.
Right.
So I think that's your comfort if you're walking away from this as a Tennessee fan, is saying, well, Stetson Bennett can't make those plays. Will Levis can't make those plays, although Levis made some big ones on Saturday against Mississippi State. You're looking at your schedule going, who else can do what that guy just did?
Right.
And there's nobody that can do that until you get to CJ Stroud maybe at Ohio State, or Caleb Williams at USC, and even he got beat this weekend.
Let me ask you a question, because, people are talking now, there's a possibility that 3 SEC teams can make it into college football playoffs, all this stuff. What is better for Tennessee? Is it to beat Georgia or to lose to Georgia barely obviously, because you don't want to get blown out, right, by Georgia.
This is such a tough call.
So is it better to lose to Georgia so you avoid playing Alabama in a rematch in the SEC championship? Because I feel that's going to be a little dicey for UT.
That might be the sneakiest way to get in at 11-1, second place, because Alabama's gotten in it as an 11-1 second place team. Ohio State got in 2015 as an 11-1, 2016 as an 11-1 second place team. It's not unprecedented for it to happen.
Because if they go to a neutral field, right, and they lose to Alabama in a neutral field, because you just got talking about the head-to-heads, they look at it like a neutral field. Now, Alabama has a win at a neutral field. UT's win is at their home field. How do they view that if Alabama were to win?
That's such a great question.
And then Georgia's outside looking in.
I don't think 3 will get in. I think that's pretty
right.
I think Clemson's going to get in, and I think Ohio State's going to get in. So here's what I think I can say definitively. If Tennessee is 12-0 playing in Atlanta with wins over Georgia and Alabama, they're in. Okay. Doesn't matter what happens against Alabama or whoever. Ole Miss, God, let us dream of a Lane Kiffin Tennessee SEC championship game for just a second. If Tennessee is 12-0 and in Atlanta, they will have already clinched a spot. Doesn't matter what happens in that game. Georgia got blown out last year in that game, got in. The Tennessee is in at 12-0 going to Atlanta, whether they lose, get blown out, win, or whatever. If Georgia's 12-0 and they're playing Bama at 11-1, I don't know. I think they both might get in ahead of Tennessee. If Alabama loses to Georgia in that situation, then you could see Georgia and Tennessee both getting in. If Alabama beats Georgia in that situation, that's where it's hard for Tennessee to get in.
Yeah.
Because then you've got, I mean, again,
it's a very tricky still. It's
I don't see it happening.
It's such a tenuous thing for, like, you want to see the rematch of Alabama UT, right? Doesn't everybody want to see that? Yeah, aren't you sick of Alabama Georgia?
If I'm a Tennessee fan, I don't know if I do.
See, that's why I wonder. That's my question.
I want to take my W.
Ultimately, that's my question.
Next October.
When do you want to face Alabama again? Next year? SEC championship or the college football playoffs?
Never. Next year. What's interesting, and here's what's really cool about this, and I think this speaks to, again, how good of a year we're having. Alabama has road trips to LSU and Ole Miss, and then Auburn.
No gimmies.
They could lose one of those.
Yeah, they're
Georgia,
not gimmies.
Georgia at Mississippi State, at Kentucky, Tennessee, and Florida. Could they lose one of those, including Tennessee? Yes. Could Tennessee fall to Kentucky in 2 weeks? Yes. So we have so much left to be played. I don't think it's worth diving in, because Michigan, to me,
there's just something rattling around in my head.
I think Michigan's going to be 11-0. Ohio State's going to be 11-0 when they play each other, and that also is a case for a second place team to get into the playoff. We have so much time to discuss all the playoff stuff that I don't think it benefits as much as to talk about what the impact on the program for Tennessee, what that means for this organization. And number one, it's proof of concept.
Mm-hmm.
It is. What Josh Heupel is doing is working. The plan has worked. It is successful. And in less than a year and a half, they have beaten Alabama, beaten Florida, gone on the road and beaten LSU. Tell me a Tennessee team that's ever done that before. That is, at least in the last 20 years, that the proof of concept is now there and available for Josh Heupel to sell to everyone.
And I think that if you're an offensive skill player that has been on the fence about where you are wanting to go, and you just saw UT have a wide receiver go for over 200 yards and 5 touchdowns, I believe it was.
Touchdowns.
I think you're looking at that saying, okay, I want to go play in this offense. Like, no doubt, I get that Alabama is a national championship, storied program, a dynasty, but maybe if I go to UT, I'm joining the next dynasty in the SEC, and at least I'm going to get a lot of stats from it, right?
So this is what's hard for me. I think it's unbelievable value to the University of Tennessee football program to have that win.
Yeah, massive. More than just I feel like it's so massive.
More than just the catharsis of Saturday night and carrying the goalposts and smoking cigars and Peyton Manning, and
that's such a massive win to build on, right?
It's about building on it now. But here's the other thing: it doesn't mean you're going to go win the division this year.
Right.
It doesn't mean you're going to out recruit Georgia this year. It doesn't mean you're going to beat Alabama next year. It doesn't mean anything about Josh Heupel long term in terms of can he win a national championship.
Yeah.
But it gives you proof of concept in the short term. So I think it's kind of a weird hedge your bets kind of thing, where you say, how big is this? It's enormous for the program. It helps you sell recruits. It helps you sell fans. It helps you sell season tickets. I guarantee you they're going to fundraise like crazy off the backs of this first half of the season. They're number 3 in the nation. They are back. Tennessee is back. Does that mean that Josh Heupel's going to win national championships? We have no clue.
No.
We have no clue.
Yeah,
so, like, the people that are, to me, this is where
I
media brain takes over my head, and I just don't, like, enjoy what you got right now. Enjoy the moment, because you never know what's going to happen.
But specifically I did, but we both had talked about over the summer, we talked about how you are starting to buy in, right? The way the players react to Coach Josh, the way that the media has reacted, the way the fans have reacted, the way that, hell, even I, over the whole year, been touting, I think
You've been on Tennessee.
I've been on Tennessee's going to be pretty good this year.
You said they would be Georgia from the beginning.
Yeah, and I believe in Coach Josh, right? I mean, that was the thing that I said. I believe in Coach Josh. I know it's only been one season, but I believe in what he's doing.
Right.
And now I am a fucking genius because what he's doing is correct. And does it equate to championships? I don't know.
Maybe.
But does it equate to much better seasons for UT fans? Yes.
So I was on a radio station earlier, like in Charleston today, and they asked me, like, what's your opinion? How has your opinion changed of Josh Heupel's hiring? And my opinion at the time was he is a professional adult head coach who is mature and is a professional who's going to run a professional winning program. My questions were, could he beat Alabama and Georgia every year? Could he out-recruit Alabama, Georgia, and A&M every year and compete for championships, division, SEC, and national championships? I always thought, you know what, this is going to be a pretty good program, 8-4, 9-3 most years. That's a good program. Does Tennessee settle for that, or do they want national championships? And I think they deserve national championships. And the question still, what I have changed my opinion on is the upside of Josh Heupel has changed. I never believed that he was going to be terrible, or that they were not going to be winning, or that the offense wasn't going to be good. What I believed was I questioned the upside. And now we have proof of concept that he can beat Alabama. So
as long as the good thing about being in the SEC, though, and especially with the power shift that's going on with the divisions and stuff, as long as you remain competitive, because they're going to expand the playoffs, right?
Now we're talking.
Now we're talking. See, that's the thing, is that UT is probably the most dangerous team, going to be one of the most dangerous fringe teams that's not in the top 4 that you don't want to see come January and February.
1,000,000%. Let's say they lose to Georgia. Let's say they slip up to Kentucky and lose to Georgia. Let's say they're 10-2 at the end of the year. Everyone's a little like bummed, but perspective should be, man, we took another big step. We went from 7 wins to 10 wins. And an expanded playoff, they would walk into that playoff as like the 9 seed.
And people would be betting money.
And they would be favored over like the Big 12 champion or whatever.
Yeah.
Like that is what you've earned with this win, is proof of upside for Josh Heupel in Tennessee. It doesn't give you the upside. It gives you proof that it could happen.
It doesn't guarantee anything. Right. Nothing's guaranteed. Even for Saban, nothing's guaranteed, right? Like, but all that UT wants at this point, I mean, essentially they want the championship, right? But all that you need as a fan to root for, once the college football playoffs expansions go, once Georgia is starting to funnel and Alabama starting to funnel more and more players into the NFL, you want to start catching up with them.
You got to recruit like them.
Yeah, you got to recruit like them. You got to start putting people in the pros like they do. And you just got to be competitive. You may not beat Georgia and Alabama every year, but you beat one every so often. You're trade off wins. You're good, and you're going to get into the playoffs.
Yes, and I think that's the difference. Like, look at Ole Miss under Hugh Freeze. They beat Alabama twice, didn't win anything.
Right.
Like, they have those memorable moments on the square where they partied like crazy at square, at the bookstore, and had a great time. But like until like 10 p.m. when all the bars shut down in Oxford. But like it doesn't tangibly change anything, and then it also changes everything all at the same time. Now, here's the other thing I want to point out, and this is directed at a few people out there. There's been a narrative about Tennessee football for the last 15 years that this is no longer a championship caliber program. That when you think about teams that have national title DNA, that Tennessee's not one of them. I have said for 15 years that is horseshit. They have as many resources as any other program in the country. They have as good a recruiting base, 6-hour radius around Knoxville, as any other team in America. And if anything, NIL is helping them spend that money and those resources. And population trends are bringing more talent into their 6-hour recruiting base. Tennessee has never not been capable of this. They have just hired bad people for the roles that they were hired for. Now they've got Donde Plowman. Now they've got Danny White. And now they've got Josh Heupel. They've hired 3 good people in the 3 most important roles. And now we're seeing success. It is not a surprise that Tennessee is good. They've had everything they've ever needed to be great. They just hired bad people for 15 years. And now they're through that. Full stop. Quit telling me Tennessee can't win big.
And here's the thing. The only thing that's going to prevent Coach Josh from reaching the college football playoffs and the Mecca holding up that championship trophy is going to be how he recruits defense from here on out. Because has to be a focus. Your offense works. You have to start focusing in on defense, because then if you got your defense all up and looking great, at least even average, right? Even if it's NCAA average, kind of like how the Titans were a couple years ago.
You don't want to be Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Oklahoma's got a great offense. They get to the playoffs.
Just got to be average. If you're NCAA average, you have a damn good football team.
Yeah. Yep. And I think Tennessee's on its way. And here's the deal. Enjoy the season, guys.
Yeah.
Enjoy the ride. Alabama fans, you control your own destiny. Yep. You're going to be poor Mississippi State, by the way.
Yeah.
Mississippi State, 3 touchdown underdog to Alabama this weekend. Like, poor Mississippi State. Alabama's going to murder them. It's not going to be pretty. They're in control of their own destiny. Georgia's coming up. Kentucky's coming. Like, it's going to be a phenomenal final month of the season. Let's enjoy the ride.
Right.
Let's enjoy the ride. All right. Come to the pharmacy. Hang out with the heckler, Joe. There you go. Come out. Hang out with Zach and I here at the Pharmacy Burger Beer Garden Burger Parlor. Easy for me to say. I'm a little worked up. McFerrin Avenue, East Nashville. Locally owned and operated since 2011. It's a great place to get a burger and some tots. You want some bratwurst? Come get it. You got the Kingston Group, of course, Nashville's locally owned custom home and remodeling firm. BuildKG.com is the website. And Weiss Liquors, Uber Eats, Weiss Liquors. They'll deliver the booze in as quickly as 20 minutes right to your house.
They drive so you can drink.
We're getting so good at this.
We are.
We are average at best. So check out all 3 of those companies, 3 locally owned companies. Support local business. They support us, so you guys support them, please. That's all that we ask. If you want to jump into the comment section, of course, we've got time for your questions and comments. All right, rest of the SEC.
Kentucky grounds Mississippi State. They're raid.
I like that. I like that. Why? Why did the Mike Leach stop running the ball? I don't understand. Kentucky, give him credit.
Mm-hmm.
Will Levis came back, fought through some injuries, threw that touchdown pass on 4th and goal in the late 3rd quarter. So Kentucky's still a factor here. Be careful of what Kentucky's doing.
It's I can't wrap my head about what Kentucky is, and I think I will say this: where we had Kentucky ranked, you and I, in the 2nd tier below Georgia and Alabama, I think was incorrect.
Okay.
I think that they are now in a 3rd tier. That's like your LSU, they're below
State.
Ole Miss, and they're below, and we'll talk about Ole Miss here in just a second, and they're below UT. You know, they're below those teams. I think they're kind of like a 3rd tier. There's like a 2B, a tier 2B.
Okay. So 1st tier is, and this is going to piss off Tennessee fans, Alabama, Tennessee. You mean Alabama, Georgia? Or is Tennessee on that tier?
I would say 1 tier below.
I agree. Twitter doesn't. I think Ole Miss.
But it's so close.
Ole Miss strength of schedule 109th in the nation. I think Ole Miss is dangerous. I think they're very good. I don't know how good yet.
Yeah.
They have played a ridiculously easy schedule. They beat Auburn. They kind of played around with Auburn in the second half, frankly. Give them credit for actually fighting pretty hard. I think the Mississippi schools are pretty good. I think Tennessee, like I would take Tennessee over Ole Miss. My power rankings would probably be Georgia 1. You'd have to go Tennessee and Alabama in that order, even if I think Bama's the better team. And then 4 would be Ole Miss. 5 is probably Kentucky, though, because they just beat Mississippi State. There's probably 6 who lost to LSU, so maybe LSU 6.
See that it's like Kentucky, Kentucky, LSU, Arkansas are kind of all floating around. It's like,
did you watch your boy KJ Jefferson this
week?
Holy smokes, it was good.
It's like 1A or it's 1 Georgia. I think Georgia's the clear 1, and if let's do tier 2 or 1B, Alabama, UT,
and Ole Miss.
No, then I would do another tier of Ole Miss by himself. Like I think Ole Miss is in this limbo where because we don't know what Ole Miss is, but Kentucky grounds them, looks really good. Ole Miss, we think that ranks, kind of in between.
It's so hard, dude. And this, because they're going to play all their games are left on the schedule for Ole Miss. Mississippi State's played some tough ones, but still has a bunch of tough ones. Kentucky still has Georgia at home. They still have Tennessee on the road. So we're going to find out about Kentucky, like big picture wise. But I think here's the thing about Kentucky and Ole Miss, frankly. Ole Miss wants to play a pretty game.
Mm-hmm.
They want to play in space. They're going to try to play defense, but they want to play in space. Kentucky wants to play dirty. They want it to be ugly. They want it to be, in between the tackles. They want Chris Rodriguez running the football. Ironically, Ole Miss beat them at their game.
Right.
So that's what makes those two teams hard to analyze. It's so hard to buy into Ole Miss right now because of
the schedule. The
Yeah.
schedule is tough, and that's kind of wanted to get your temperature gauge on it because we keep saying that every week, and then they keep pulling out wins every week I know, but it'll be interesting to see where they go from here because that's the key, right? Are they going to fizzle out now, or are they going to keep the momentum going?
Well, they will be on the road against LSU this weekend, so that's a first huge test right there. Then they host Alabama here in a couple of weeks. They play all their tough games. And they got all their games left.
Their athletic director did no favors making that schedule.
Or it was perfect because they allowed the new quarterback and the quarterback battle to play out against nobodies, and then all of a sudden they find their way into their rhythm, and now they're playing their tough games when they're at their best. So I think you could almost argue that they did a good job of scheduling this year to give themselves time to grow into themselves. So I think Ole Miss is very good. I don't know how good. I think Tennessee's above them. They played Kentucky in basically a one-score game. I'd say they're basically even right now. Ole Miss has got to play Mississippi State later at the end of the year in the Egg Bowl. We'll find out about Ole Miss the next 3 weeks.
All right. Quick victory lap on the Florida Gators. You told me, and I didn't believe you, that this team's not going to be good this year. It's going to be next year. That is the next year leap. And I said, no, something about Billy Napier, Anthony Richardson. I believe in it. And sure enough, I think you're right.
Oh, go on.
So take your victory lap.
No, so my stance on Brian Kelly and Billy Napier, the two new coaches that played this week in Gainesville, and LSU dominated most of that game. Florida made a comeback. But that Brian Kelly was going to get LSU good fast, and that Billy Napier was going to have more upside long term. I still stand by that. I still think LSU is going to be better than people think this year. I think their win total was 7. They're already at 5. So if you had the over, you're probably in good shape. If they beat Ole Miss this week, then we'll really know that Brian Kelly's doing work. But that Billy Napier's the right guy for the job. I don't take anything. This Florida team has no depth. They have no defensive front depth. They have no weaponry on the outside for Anthony Richardson to throw to. They just don't. It's not Florida personnel. I don't even want to say
But that's what you said. That's why you get to take the victory lap, because it's what you told me all the time.
I'm feeling good about this. I really like the Billy Napier hire. I think it's a long-term slow build.
Right.
And I think that's what we're looking for Florida this week. Although I didn't have any clue what was going to happen in that game. I'll be honest.
It was a wild game.
I had no idea what was going to happen in that game. So give credit to LSU and Brian Kelly for what they did, for sure.
So,
all right, victory lap taken. All right.
There you go.
In the AFC, Zach. So I was watching NFL football, of which you are the expert. And I'm watching, and, Green Bay's offense looks completely lethargic. I'm watching the Colts-Jags
articles are out that says Aaron Rodgers is quiet quitting.
Quiet quitting. I believe it. Then why? Wait,
not good for my fantasy team.
Can you me either. Can you quiet quit after asking for $150 million raise? I don't.
Yeah, see, that's the thing to me is like I get it that they didn't pay Devontae Adams, but how can they pay Devontae Adams when they paid you? You took care of your own self, and then now you're blaming everybody else for your problems.
Now I think the list of starting quarterbacks on Sunday was P.J. Walker, Skylar Thompson, Jacoby Brissett, Marcus Mariota, Andy Dalton, Cooper Rush. Who else? I'm missing some more. There's a few other names in there that don't make any sense.
I think that was it.
Those were starting quarterbacks.
Maybe you could include Carson Wentz and Justin Fields, but they played on Thursday.
Those are the starting quarterbacks in the NFL. So some of the reason the NFL feels to me like it is less explosive and less offensive outside of Mahomes and Allen, which was spectacular on Sunday, is that I'm seeing a bunch of bad quarterback play because of injuries. But number two, it just feels, I don't know, you tell me if I'm wrong here. It feels like offense as a whole is a little bit down this year, that defenses are playing better. We know this league is very cyclical. Do you feel that? Do you sense that? Am I just
no
my rocker here?
It's kind of weird in the sense that, okay, Arizona today traded for Robbie Anderson, and someone that came out in the Josina Anderson came out with some source inside the Arizona Cardinals organization that said, it's just been real tough for us because we didn't have a lot of time in the offseason to gel. Well, I'm thinking, you traded for Hollywood Brown at the NFL draft. How much time do you need? But it goes to a larger sense that
and they played together in college.
Yeah, the offensive line to me is an issue. It's pandemic, epidemic, whatever you want to call it. It's bad league wide, and you see that the teams that have the closest to the best offensive lines out there, the Chiefs, the Eagles, and the Bills have a really good offensive line.
Yep.
Are the ones that are having the most consistent, I guess, success offensively.
Yeah, I mean that's the Titans' problem. That's the Packers' problem.
Ravens'
that's
problem.
The Ravens' problem. Yeah, no, I agree.
Bengals.
Yeah,
I mean, you go down the list of all these teams. The Dolphins have a quarterback injury problem. They have an issue with keeping their quarterbacks, obviously, from being hit. That stems from the offensive line.
Any former Alabama quarterback this weekend.
Yo, my gosh, they all get crushed. That's just Dallas. Almost won the game against the Eagles last night on Sunday night, but it's Cooper Rush, so they're getting Dak Prescott back, so maybe their defense is enough to do that. Obviously, Ezekiel Elliott is trash.
He's been used up.
Yeah, but you look around, you're right, and then you look at the AFC specifically. It's the haves and have-nots, and there's only two halves. Like it's the Bills and the Chiefs conference, and we're all just fucking living in it at this point.
And it feels weird to hear you say that because the whole offseason conversation was about how great the quarterback play was. Russell Wilson's another one we need to add to the list. Like Russell Wilson goes from Hall of Famer, and I know you've said this, that he wasn't all that great the last couple of years in Seattle, but Hall of Famer goes to Denver and like that was one of the worst football games I've seen. What was it, last Monday or
last Thursday?
Last Thursday. Oh my God, one of the worst football games I've ever seen. And so the whole conversation in the offseason was how great the quarterback play in the AFC was. We had Joe Burrow coming off a Super Bowl run, Lamar Jackson coming back to a healthy collection of players around him. You look at Mac Jones developing in the second year of his career.
Bailey Zappi would have been one that we left off.
That's the one. That's the one I was forgetting. Bailey Zappi. And then all the
then, of course, you had Kenny Pickett go down, Mitch Trubisky come in.
Trubisky goes in. So clearly the state of quarterback play is affecting this. But it does feel like, and I think this is how you spin it into the Titans conversation, because I agree with you. It's Chiefs and Bills, and that's it. We saw, what was the stat yesterday that in the AFC Championship game or the divisional round, they were tied after first quarter, tied after second quarter, tied after the third quarter, tied after the fourth quarter. Yesterday, tied after the first quarter, tied after the second quarter, tied after the third quarter. And then Allen throws an absolute seed over somebody and underneath somebody else to Dawson Knox, who catches the game-winning touchdown pass with a minute to go. Just perfect quarterback play.
And he threw Dawson Knox open.
Unbelievable throw. And I think he actually wanted him to like go the other direction. But after that, this is where if I'm a Titans fan, I'm not excited. I am hopeful that when I look around the AFC, I see beatable teams with what we've got. We being the Titans, meaning we know Mike Vrabel said on Monday, every option is on the table for the offensive line. We know that during the bye week. Bud Dupree looks like he's going to be back. Looks like Amani Hooker could be back this week against the Colts. If I'm the Titans, I'm thinking we got upward mobility here because the division and the conference is not as good as we thought it was going to be. And I don't know. I see it across the league. It looks like just offense is just not as good as it was last year. And I don't know if that's
just thinking about the two NFC East games that are left, right? You're going to probably face the Cowboys with Dak Prescott, and they have a phenomenal defense. Your offense is not phenomenal. The Eagles have a phenomenal defense. Your offense is not phenomenal. Luckily, I think you're getting a down year for the Packers or the other NFC game, right?
Yeah.
The only AFC game that you really are concerned about is the Chiefs. So there's, let's say, Chiefs loss, Eagles loss, Cowboys loss. Okay, you're 11-5 again. No, 12-5.
No, 12-6.
Right?
No, you're right.
Yeah, 12-5.
You're right, 5. Yeah. Now, again, the way the NFL works is
obviously that's not going to happen.
We said that last year about those 4 games, right? In the middle of the season. And how could they get through this stretch? They win all 4 of them: Rams, Chiefs, Bills.
And let's talk about this AFC real quick. Okay. No team with a losing record in the AFC East. No team.
As we planned.
Yeah. No team with a winning record in the AFC North. Titans and Colts rule the AFC South again. Okay,
it all works itself out in the
and then right now, of course, you got the whatever happens between the Chargers and Denver tonight. One of those, if the Chargers win, you have 2 teams in the AFC West with winning records. If the Denver wins, you only have 1 team. This is an AFC. You're going to have to win your division if you're not in the AFC East because one of these guys. I mean, the Patriots looked really good yesterday with Ramondre Stevenson. I know Mac Jones is coming back, and maybe that doesn't move the needle, but this young defense is getting better
and
better and better.
Or Mac Jones.
Yeah. But this defense is getting better and better and better in New England.
Who's it coached by again?
Yeah. You know, I look at this and I think, yeah, Tennessee can win. Obviously, Tennessee can make the playoffs. Obviously, you know, but it's going to be the Bills and the Chiefs, right? I mean,
listen, it was the Bills and Chiefs last year for me.
Yeah.
Going into the playoffs, I thought those are the best two teams.
But they're clearly the best this year. Like last year, they're not clearly the best.
I agree, and it's because of quarterback play right now. And again,
their defenses are playing really well.
The key is like which team in the AFC do you feel like has upward mobility in terms of potential? Like, could Joe Burrow figure it out with those weapons? Could Lamar Jackson figure it out with those weapons? Justin Herbert, the Chargers, could they figure it out?
I think the Bengals and the Ravens have the most upward mobility of all the teams not named Bills and Chiefs, and here's why. I think the Ronnie Staley still battling and coming back. He can get better as the year goes on. This is a new Bengals offensive line from start to finish. And we have seen here in Tennessee firsthand that it takes in this particular offense, which Zach Stacy runs a similar type of offense, that it's going to take 8 to 9 weeks to, I call him Zach Stacy again.
You did.
God damn. Zach Taylor.
Don't watch internet video of Zach Stacy, by the way.
Zach Taylor. But it takes 8 to 9 weeks for this offensive line to gel. And so I think that for those particularly two big reasons, those teams have the most upward mobility. I don't know if Mike Vrabel came back from the break at the bye week with a positive attitude about this team.
He was
because
feisty.
He was in a piss poor mood. Yeah. And the bye week is used to self-scout. And I think he looked at this team, specifically talking about the offensive line today, specifically Dennis Daly. There's a lot of holes and positions they have to think about. Yeah. And I think that he was not expecting – I don't know maybe what he saw during the games, but I don't think he was expecting to come back and be like, okay, this team's a little bit more worse for wear than I thought.
Obviously the Titans aren't as good as I thought they were going to be this year. But I don't think that – I think the beauty of this conversation is that I don't think they have to be to get to where they need to be just in a position to be playing the right ball at the end. Because I believe this. I said it now on every show. If you are 4-4 in the NFL and then you play your best football, you can beat anybody because that's the nature of the game. That's how it's designed, is to take a 500 football team that gels correctly at the right time and gives them a chance to win big. And I think the Titans can absolutely do that. Can they win a Super Bowl? I'm not picking that. Is it possible? I guess. The question is, can they win the division? Can they host a playoff game? And if you give them a home playoff game, why can't they win that game? I don't.
Ryan Tannehill, the defense suddenly shits the bed. Derrick Henry's shut down. A lot of reasons.
Can I say that about any team, though, at that point?
I don't know.
Every team?
I don't know. I mean, Tennessee's just proven that to be the case, multiple times. Whereas, it took for Buffalo to lose, it took a, piss poor overtime rules and a bad defense, which they have since corrected.
Well, but I'm talking about divisional round at home or even wild card round. I guess they wouldn't. Maybe they would be hosting that. The question is, I'm not talking about AFC Championship game on the road against Buffalo.
Gotcha.
On the road against Kansas City. Again, I don't think the Titans' upside is Super Bowl. I think the Titans' upside is a playoff win. I don't think if you look at the AFC and it's just a two-team race, you can win a playoff game.
I would agree. It should be fairly easy if they get a home playoff game, which they should because they're going to have to win the division to get in more than likely. That if they win and they get a home playoff game, they should win. They should have won last year.
What if it's Cincinnati at home?
Yeah,
again?
I think you may see a lot of fans that want to go.
Well, and in my brain I'm like laying out the playoff bracket, and in my brain I'm trying to remember that it's not 2 byes, 1 bye with 3, and you got to recalibrate your brain a little bit for all that. Again, I think a home playoff win is absolutely the goal for this football team. If they don't win the division and don't make the playoffs, I would consider that disappointing. If they get a home playoff game, I think Mike Vrabel is disappointed in what he self-scouted maybe. I think he's a little feisty because the email got out, even though, with all due respect, when you reply all, I'm sorry, you're including 70.
It was probably Chris Ballard.
Well, you're including 70 people in the know. And once 70 people are in the know, it's going to get out. I'm sorry. That's why coaching contracts are done with 2 people in one room by themselves. I just think there's a lot of upward mobility in the AFC. I think the quarterback plays worse. I think offensive football is down across the league. And I think that gives the Titans a chance with Derrick Henry and a coaching staff that I trust to get better over the course of the year. I think the upside is playoff win at home, and I think that's a possibility.
I think if you are to reset your expectations as fans, that should be the pinnacle, right? I mean, At this point, anything above a home playoff win is just gravy and probably improbable. It's kind of like the Bengals last year, even making it to the Super Bowl. It was an improbable run. They required a lot of luck to go their way for them to make it there.
Yeah.
So
a rookie kicker had to make a bunch of field goals.
Yeah, so you really just have to hope for luck at this point. The problem is that I think that when the Titans are right now, the Titans are below some teams, even though a lot of teams are together in a clump. If you were to look at the clump in layers, Tennessee would kind of be like near the bottom of the clump almost.
Like, are they better than the Jets?
Yeah, I think so.
I would
like that. See, that's the thing is that I think so.
A lot of talent on that Jets team, but they're all young.
Right.
I would take the Titans in that game.
Well, I mean, they lost to them last year, and they were a much worse team last year.
That example.
Yeah. So I guess, that's the thing is that I feel like this Tennessee team is not one of those teams quite yet that can just roll over any team. But I also think that because that's the case, and there are other teams just like that if you are continuing to trend upwards, more than likely the people above you are probably also continuing to trend upwards.
Yeah, this is exclusively about how you are playing in the last 6 weeks of the season.
This game against the Colts, and we'll cover a lot of the Colts game, obviously on Thursday, but this game against the Colts is going to tell us what kind of team this Tennessee team thought they were going in and what kind of Tennessee team they are now.
Yep, I completely agree. We've got a lot of stuff. So literally in about 2 minutes from now, if you're watching us live, as you should be on YouTube, Facebook, and across all the platforms, we know that Mayor John Cooper is about to speak at a press conference to address the new Titans Stadium and facility. We will address all of that on Thursday. I'm going to get you some new information on that. We'll preview the Colts weekend and, of course, another week of SEC football. So a lot of stuff coming up on Thursday's show. Zach, where can people find and listen to all of your great and amazing and spectacular content?
YouTube, everywhere you get podcasts, and also on Twitter at FWordsPod. You can follow me on all these places. Turn on your notifications at the 440 Sports YouTube channel, the Broadway Sports Media YouTube channel. Turn notifications on for my tweets, for 440 Sports tweets, for Braden tweets at Braden Gall. Turn on notifications for everything that we have because this week's Football and Other F Words is going to be pretty good.
Ooh.
Even though that we don't have a lot to talk about, we're going to obviously
change in strategy.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about the stadium news that comes out today. We're going to cover a little bit about that. We're going to talk about Mike Vrabel's press conference, Josh Gordon stuff, which is just hilarious to me how fans are reacting about Josh Gordon.
Adios, Josh.
We're going to talk about the trade deadline, even though it's still a few weeks away.
Ooh.
Mike does not think that the Titans should be buyers. And I kind of asked a question. We always talk about the Titans being buyers. Should they be sellers?
Oh, that is some hot shit.
And, of course, we're going to dive into this Colts game and what it all means as well.
Cannot wait. Make sure you check out all the great stuff from Broadway Sports Media, from Zach as well, and from Mike Herndon, all the other great stuff that these guys are doing. Please make sure you swing by the pharmacy, man. Look at this place. This is great. It's gorgeous out. The weather is still, in my opinion, perfect because I like 62 and warm sunshine. Burger, Parlor, Beer Garden right here at the pharmacy, East Nashville on McFerrin Avenue. Great place to get a burger, some bratwurst, some tots, a nice cold beverage. Come out and see Joe. You got a milkshake over there, Joe. I like that. You got chocolate over there? Of course, chocolate. Vanilla is for terrorists. And, of course, the Kingston Group and Weiss Liquors, the Kingston Group, Nashville's locally owned and operated custom home and remodeling firm. Make sure you talk to them. Just have a conversation with them before you make any big decisions about your house. BuildKG.com is the website. And Weiss Liquors, Uber Eats, search Weiss Liquors, and they'll deliver booze to your house in as quickly as 20 minutes.
Because they drive, so you can drink.
There you have it, folks. The Kingston Group, Weiss Liquors, the pharmacy. We love you guys for supporting us, a local business here, 440 Sports, as well as Broadway Sports Media. We appreciate you guys hanging out with us. Victory Monday, support local business. I think I got it all in there, man. Turn on all the notifications. For Zach, I'm Braden. For the heckler, this has been The Football Show.